Welcome to the latest installment of Don't Take This as Gospel. I'm Mike Partika, and this is going to be the last in a four-part series on Scientology. I honestly thought I was going to have more to say on Scientology, but it turns out that the materials I had were kind of threadbare. I was really surprised to see how bare and unrewarding the materials on Scientology I had turned out to be. So this is pretty much going to be it. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things, odds and ends here. The first thing I want to talk about is the Jason Begay interview. Uh, if you if you haven't seen this video, I'm going to put a link to it in the video description. It's a 2-hour video, but it is well worth watching. You're going to learn a lot about Scientology and about this particular guy. He's an actor on Chicago PD. Uh, he got into Scientology when he was a young man, and he finally got out of it years later. And in 2007 was when he left. 2008, he recorded a 2-hour video talking about his trials and travails in Scientology, why he got in, why he got out. It's a very, very fascinating video. And one of the things that I learned from that video, and again, please do watch it, it's going to be in the video description. One of the things that I learned from the video is why L. Ron Hubbard, at least one of the reasons why, he developed the Xenu mythology. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard about this in connection with Scientology, but Scientology actually has a mythology behind it. And that mythology has to do with an Emperor Xenu who 75 million years ago ruled over the galaxy and consigned a portion of the subjects of his galactic empire to be thrown into volcanoes here on Earth and blown up with hydrogen bombs so that their spirits are now coagulated into these Thetan clusters that bind to people, and you have to get rid of the influence of these Thetan clusters on you. Now, all of that is just like, what? What are you even talking about? But one of the things that I've learned over time from studying religion is that mythologies have a reason for existing. Nobody creates a mythology unless they're trying to explain something that happened in the past, or they're trying to explain something that right now is happening in the present. Kind of a how did we get here kind of state. And something that Jason Begay said in his interview kind of triggered that with me, because he was talking about the Xenu myth, and he said, when you get to clear, which is the state, clear is the state at which you are supposed to have no reactive mind left. Just a refresher here. The reactive mind is kind of like your subconscious mind, and it receives programming from sensory input, things people say, things you see, sensations of touch and smell and what have you. While you're unconscious, while you're in a state of pain, while you're in shock, while you're experiencing some kind of trauma, anytime that your conscious mind gets suppressed for any reason, your unconscious mind is still running and still absorbing. And because it is getting all of these impressions, sometimes, especially in times that are associated with trauma, or maybe while you're asleep, you will bring out what was stored in your reactive mind at the wrong times, at times that are similar, at times that trigger things in you. It's almost like the kind of trigger psychology. So the Scientology process is to be audited to see what is in your reactive mind, with the hopes of getting eventually to clear. And in the reactive mind, through the auditing process, you're able to one by one go through these engrams that are in the reactive mind and blow them away, and basically get rid of the emotional charge and the false teachings that these engrams contain, and finally get to a state where your reactive mind bank is empty and you essentially have no reactive mind of your own. Of your own being the key words there. Because, and here's what I suspect, people who L. Ron Hubbard had brought to this supposed state of clear through much auditing and much money, uh, were still demonstrating that they had reactive mind impressions, which led them to say, okay, well, why is it that if I'm supposedly clear, I'm still getting these same or reactive mind impressions? Where are they coming from if I'm clear? Because I'm not supposed to have a reactive mind anymore. Which then necessitated the development of a teaching like, oh, but there are these spirits, these thetans and clusters of thetans who have bonded to you, and they are producing the reactive mind engrams that are still plaguing you to this day. So you yourself, you don't have a reactive mind, but now you're having to deal with the reactive mind of all of these thetans. It's like, well, okay, fine. Where did the thetans come from? And thus we gain the mythology of Xenu, because that explains why these spirits are floating around and binding to you in the first place. It's because, hey, galactic empire, people in volcanoes getting blown up with hydrogen bombs. Sounds legit. But, oh my gosh, yeah, I can't imagine getting to be an operating Thetan level 3, which is where you learn about the Xenu mythology, and finding this out. Because you got to know that there are people who get to that stage who are just like, are you serious? And I bet a lot of it, the reason that people even stay with Scientology after that is largely because of the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is basically saying, well, I've invested so much time and energy, money, whatever, into this already, I may as well stick with it. It's kind of like starting a book, not liking the book, but thinking, well, I've got the book. I've read 15 chapters or so far. I may as well read the last 75 chapters. That's kind of a sunk cost fallacy. You don't have to read the last 75 chapters. You can just turn the book in over to half price books if you want and go on with your life. But there are people who think, well, I'd better just go ahead and finish. I bet a lot of people, have to engage that sunk cost fallacy pretty hard when you get to OT level 3, because oh my gosh, can you imagine? And the cost that these people have sunk is substantial. I mean, I had no idea how expensive Scientology is. Let me give you a couple of examples. I went and I looked in on Wikipedia just when I was looking up the Xenu myth, and their article there said that in 1988 dollars, it would cost $100,000 to get to OT level 3 to find out about the Xenu myth. And that's $220,000 today. Imagine that you had sunk $220,000 of your hard-earned money to get to the point where you could learn a story about a galactic empire where people were thrown into volcanoes and blown up with hydrogen bombs just so they could become plaguing you as Thetan clusters. Oh my gosh. So yeah, the Scientology is incredibly expensive. Jason Begay remarks in his video that when he was leaving the church, he still has in the bank with them $1 million, more than $1 million. And the only reason he hasn't been able to claim that money back from them is because they're requiring him, or they would require him to sign a form saying you have no other claim against the church, and he won't do that. But oh my gosh, I mean, imagine how much it costs, because he was saying it got to the point where when you got up to the OT levels that he was at, he got up to OT level 5. The classes that they were selling were like $50,000 a class. $50,000 a class. What? Oh God, Scientology is just such a money pit, and it's a money pit really from the get-go. I've heard that they actually provide payment plans for people who are of lower income so that they can afford the Scientology auditing. That's a pretty distressing thing, especially when you look at other churches, actual churches, and they may ask for a 10 or 20 in the collection plate every week, but that doesn't amount to nearly what Scientology asks for their services. Oh man. Okay, so enough of me reacting about that. Yeah, the money pit is horrible. And the other thing that was disappointing to me when I was watching the Jason Begay video, and if I didn't mention it already, I'm going to put that in the video description as well, uh, is just that their techniques eventually didn't work. Didn't work for him. Didn't work for a lot of people he saw. That's the thing that Scientology sells is you sign up with us, you give us all this money, and we will give you the psychological techniques to make your life better. And according to him, he saw a lot of people, and himself included, driven nearly mad by what they were doing. And it wasn't that he was misapplying the techniques. It was that the techniques themselves were screwed up. So you at least, when I was a video or two ago, I was looking at Scientology and thinking, oh geez, I mean, if this is for real, if what they have, if what they're selling, could at least psychologically unscrew you up, then wouldn't it be great if you had access to that at least? But now, having heard his interview, it's like, well, it doesn't sound like they know what they're doing either. So you would be better off going to a therapist than to somebody who is, insight, or better than going to the Church of Scientology, because they don't have the techniques, even though they might help you at a very low level. And even though I still think that there is some truth to the notion of, you have stuff in your unconscious mind that is probably plaguing you to this day. I think that's very true. I think it's also very true that, you need to be able to confront your past. You need to be able to confront the situations that you're in, and without flinching is one of the things they talk about. You confront without flinching so that you are in the present moment dealing with the situation at hand and not hiding behind a veil of illusion that you put over your own eyes for your own comfort, because all you're doing in that case is walling off the truth of your experience and not allowing yourself to see yourself and to see the situation as they really are. There's a whole lot of truth in that, but that's at such a very, very low level of Scientology, and it just sounds like from Jason Begay's video that when you go further up, you just get enmeshed in a lot of crap, as opposed to getting more and more revelation of truth, which is what you would expect, especially if you're paying that much money. I can't get over the money. I really can't. I mean, that's my goodness. Whew. So that's going to wrap it up for my diatribes on Scientology. I definitely don't recommend that anybody become a Scientologist. I mean, for heaven's sakes, try a real church before you try them. All right, that's enough for me. I'm sorry there wasn't more material to cover. I was really expecting there would be more. Thanks for following along. I hope that I was able to at least impart a little bit of knowledge about Scientology. Do watch the videos that I've got in the video description. I'll provide a couple of links there, just so you can have a good laugh in the case of the Xenu mythology, and get educated in the case of the Jason Begay video. And that's closing out this edition of Don't Take This as Gospel, and I will talk to you later.